So, if you're like me, you might have experienced some spam comments in the past. And if you are like me, they keep coming back. So, how do you deal with spam comments on your website? How do you get rid of them and make sure that they don't keep hitting you? And don't keep dragging your comment section down, decreasing your security. All these things I'm going to be answering on today's episode of the BB&J podcast. I'm your host, John Lint. Great to have you. So I was initially interested in this subject because with one of our clients, I was like looking through and there were just tons of spam comments. Again, initially I had been experiencing issues with like some Shopify sites of just tons of spam comments. It's like one day you get 50 comments from different IPs, from different emails. It's like the super stealthy way of doing it. And that's the thing. With all these like malicious attacks, hacks, spam, they adapt unfortunately faster than the like security always has to play catch up. That's the nature of the online cyber warfare, if you'll call it that. You know, defense is always playing catch up, but how quickly you respond makes a big difference. So before, in the previous episode where I talked about spam comments, I was specifically referring to a Shopify site. With that, at the end of the day, I just closed comments on on most websites. People aren't going to be organically commenting on like your blogs anyways, unless you have like a concrete following. Then you're just gonna have to skip this section, move on to the next one. But most sites, most blog posts don't get comments on the actual sites. If you share them somewhere else, if you share your content, your website content, your posts on social media, the comments that people make are going to be on social media. They're not going to be on the blog post itself. If you have a concrete online following, it's a different matter. Or specifically, a lot of people who go to your website for your content and regularly comment on that. Most people aren't in that field. You have to be putting out a lot of stuff to be in that genre. So if you're experiencing spam comments, one of the easiest ways to get rid of it is just to turn off comments. If you're in a situation where that doesn't work, or you don't want to discourage people from commenting, which is perfectly fine, then you got to get a little grittier. Spam comments have massively evolved over the years. They have adapted, overcome the default barriers and obstacles, both in software and in our behavior. If I get a comment saying, hey, click this link for, I don't know, free V-Bucks, like, I'm going to know that that's a spam comment. I'm going to know that's fake. But what they do now is they'll use this this like fill in the blank, that autocorrect software that I think a lot of us see, where it's like the predictive text. They just do that. You make a paragraph. It's like a half step above word salad, but it looks at the text on the page and it just makes like a paragraph with the same idea, or that autocorrect, that autocomplete. Posts it. I see what they do a lot is they'll have like a random name too that they'll stick with it, which varies every time as well. And like what I've observed with WordPress sites is it's not even the comment itself where the trickiness is. It's in the website that they include as like they're posting from, or like the account. Oh, hey, this is John Bint, I don't know, from notahack.com. And then like they'll have to provide an email. So it'll be this totally randomly generated thing at gmail.com, at yahoo.com. When you get targeted with these things, it'll often be a bunch of different emails, a bunch of different sites, a bunch of different IP addresses. I know what I initially tried doing was blacklisting comments by IP address, but they just kept coming from different IP addresses. I would search one IP address, it would send like 2 comments. That's what they're doing. They're going across all these different sites. They're only submitting a few per IP address, so it's significantly harder to blacklist those IP addresses. And I mean, the reason I'm making this video is because they adapted, and I want to make sure that you guys are ahead of this too, because hackers are always going to adapt. These online scammers are always going to be adapting and innovating. Maybe a more negative word instead of innovating, but innovating. You need to be innovating too. If you want to stay safe, if you want to keep your users safe, your viewers safe, whatever it is. So what I found worked this time around is blacklisting comments. What this involves specifically with WordPress, but most sites have some form of this, is in the comments, you can blacklist certain words, certain IP addresses, even certain provided emails and websites. I'll touch on that later. But what's the basic reason you want to do that? You don't want people saying profanity necessarily on your website. You don't want them saying, I mean, for lack of a better term, bad words. You know, so you can block those comments. You know, hate speech or haters, not the haters, but like offensive comments. Like you can also blacklist those. But if you're specifically dealing with hackers and scammers, you want to be able to blacklist effectively, because like I said, even you enter in a IP address to block it, that only gets like 10 comments out of at a time, and they might be sending 50 a day. They might be sending 100 a day. I've seen that too. So if the commonality is the IP address, I've dealt with that before. It makes it a lot easier. You just block that IP address from commenting and you're done. However, if they're doing this new thing, which is changing the IP address, I think they just bounce it around and then like send it from there. Then your biggest priority needs to be finding a commonality across these comments. Blacklisting is an incredibly powerful tool for preventing comments from a specific sender. Even if it is this automated system of the random algorithms, they're probably going to have a certain commonality. If you can find that, you can get rid of it. So I remember for the comments that I was dealing with, the associated website would always have like, I think like Mod Lab or films in it, those words. And so the site would be different, be like filmnet.com or 8films.biz. Don't actually look up these sites. They could be reputable stuff, but like these are just random examples. Those kind of things. And I found that if I just filtered out those words, then all the comments would be filtered. So this was a situation where if I just search for the entire thing, if I just search for the phone number, if I just searched for the IP address, the name, words in the comments, I wouldn't be able to get it. But I looked through, I found something that a lot of these things had in common, and then I was able to get it. I'm sure in 6 months, I'll have the exact same problem where they adapted around that and brought up some new stuff. But the biggest takeaway, the thing you can do to adapt the most is find a commonality and target that. That's how you're going to be able to get the most of them at once and block future spam comments. The last thing I'll say, this is not as nuclear of an option as stopping all comments, but it's something that I definitely recommend. I do with a lot of our sites, and this is just like a good practice for safety, is require comments to be approved before they're publicly visible. That way, even if there are bad links or what have you, it's only targeting you guys. It's not targeting your viewers. So you won't have to play catch up as much. In this case, yeah, I got a bunch of spam comments that I had to deal with, but none of them were live. No one saw them, which is not as ideal as not getting any, but it keeps people safe. So especially if you're not getting a lot of organic comments, having comments require approval before they're publicly visible is hugely impactful, hugely beneficial for your site safety, for the safety of your comment sections. And it means that if they adapt, they come out with something new, it won't immediately wreck you guys. That's what I like to leave you with. As always, I really appreciate you tuning in. Come back next week, and I'm sure I'll have some new interesting web related thing. Thanks for watching.